Good afternoon. We have established a quorum. We will now begin with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was just about to say, Mr. Fletcher, you now have to have the superintendent get used to hearing it at that pace directly behind her. But I'm now used to it and look forward to it, Mr. Fletcher. Again, it's actually not afternoon. It's so much light outside. I was like, it's actually evening by time. Before we begin, I'd like to note that we did let Mr. Blumberg take a vacation, so he is not with us, and he feels highly disappointed that he is missing our board member, as he has told me multiple times, including today. But thank you very much. We have Carolyn Waller joining us this evening, so thank you, and I'm pretty sure Jonathan sent strict instructions. Thank you. So, as usual, we will now begin with you, Ms. Moore.
Good evening. I'll start tonight by formally welcoming back hundreds of staff members and thousands of students who returned to learning and teaching in our 36 multi-track year-round schools yesterday. I had the opportunity to visit Adams Elementary, bright and early, yesterday, as some of those students, the first 3 tracks, and staff started their first day back. As always, there was that unmistakable back-to-school buzz that teachers, students, and parents anticipate, where you're holding the promise of a new school year. It was also exciting to sort of be there as my first day as a superintendent. Year-round schools are really a part of what makes our school system unique, and we offer families an excellent alternative to a traditional school calendar with our year-round schools. As you know, they were created as a way to maximize use of our school buildings, but we also hear constantly from parents who find that schedule really does serve their family well. I understand that people who are used to a traditional calendar might be a little perplexed by starting the school year in midsummer, but as I witnessed yesterday, the back-to-school excitement is just as present in early July as it is in mid-August. Additionally, I want to talk a little bit about literacy. It is a cornerstone of everything that we do in our schools, so I'm pleased to share a couple of ways that our community has stepped up to improve our students' reading skills. The National Campaign for Grade Level Reading recently recognized the Partners Read program. This program is a joint effort between Wake Up and Read, the Wake Education Partnership, our school district, and our business community. Partners Read recruits volunteers to read to first and second graders for 40 minutes once a week for 10 weeks. Students are allowed to keep the books at the end of those 10 weeks. In 4 years, 170 volunteers have logged 2,000 hours in 31 schools, giving away nearly 4,500 books to first and second graders. You can learn more and sign up to volunteer by visiting wakeed.org. Second, 2 teachers from Washington Magnet Elementary School, Christine Tuttle and Kelsey Clark, have formed Raleigh Rolling Readers, a bookmobile that will distribute free books to students in Southeast Raleigh. The first stop in Chavis Park was a huge success. The bookmobile's next visit will be the Post Center tomorrow from 10:30 to 12:30. My thanks to the community members and staff for giving of their time to support these efforts in student literacy. Finally tonight, now that all of the class of 2018 has crossed the stage, I'm happy to report that they set a new record in academic and athletic scholarships, $170 million. Every dollar earned represents the talent, hard work, and perseverance of not only the students, but also the teachers, principals, coaches, counselors, and parents who supported them along the way. Students landed scholarships to Harvard, Cornell, NC State, Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, Davidson College, Wake Forest, and 3 of our military service academies, and lots more. From the mission and vision statements to the core beliefs of our Vision 2020 strategic plan, it's clear that producing college and career-ready graduates is always at the heart of what we do. The community that helped shape our strategic plan should be proud that together we are leading thousands of students to fantastic opportunities. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if I'll be brief, but I only have one thing to talk about. So I just spent the weekend with 200 people between the ages of 12, that was my daughter, and roughly 25, which is the maximum age of our counselors, and the 200 of those were students, so 12 through 17. Mr. Fletcher sent me a text, and I said, I can't keep up with my text messages because I'm trying to keep up with students. So my number one thing that I'll say is, for me, and I know this personally with my own child, but watching the vast majority of those students are students in Wake County Public School System. We have taught them how to execute a fire drill very well. We've also taught our teachers. My husband was there with me this weekend as well, and the alarms went off, and I'll have you know, the adults were like, oh, it's not really a fire, and attempted to stay in the building, where all the students immediately got up out of their seats, knew to head, and they also knew to cross the street, which I forgot was a necessary thing for, and my husband said he was saying, cross the street. I will have you know, like, which I don't sail, Dr. Martin, but I understood that I needed to check every classroom to make sure every student and adult was out of that building, so I did before I left the building. And when I came outside, every adult was standing next to the building, and every student was across the street, except for my husband, who was standing in the middle of the street telling me, you need to get those adults away from the building. I share that with you because there were so many instances all weekend for me to see who our students are, what they learned, what experiences they have. And I will share with my colleagues the data. So 2 of my staff were there to capture both verbal, anecdotal, and written evaluations and language from our students. 99% of the students were identified Black or African American, and this campus around social justice and leadership and ending violence against women and girls and creating a just society. And so we do a lot around intersection of the social impact of the culture and environment they're living in. So we dissect their music. We're training them on how to be youth organizers, community organizers, and to talk about the impact that race and inequities have on them. And it's hard not to be emotional because the post-its that I saw, every student said their first impact with racism was in our schools. That was pretty hard to swallow because this is their own writing. And on the other sheet, they had to write what they do or what they believe about themselves. And all 50 Post-its that I was able to lay my eyes on said, my skin is black and it's beautiful, my voice deserves to be heard. That, as you can imagine, was quite hard to see. As the board chair of Wake County Public Schools, seeing our students, not somebody else's, ours, write those. And I see people shaking their head in the audience, who weren't there with me, by the way. And I talked to the parents about this on Sunday because we do a session on college and career readiness, financial planning, budget planning, and most of the parents came up and said, we trust and believe in this board. So I think that's important for you all to hear that, that because it wasn't just me, they were speaking to our entire board, and the way that they see not just what we say, but what we do in believing in equity for our students. And so I share that with you all to know that while the hard part was reading what these students wrote, I should also tell you that this was a transition year for us. We went from primary kids who were in foster care or wards of the state to kids who came from middle to upper class families. These were their words. These are our kids who are the only one in their classes. And they are sharing those experiences. But the good news is that they believe that this board believes in them and believes in equity. And I believe in us, but I think it's important for us to hear that people are watching, whether they're engaging with us or not. None of these folks had ever called us, had any complaints about Wake County Public Schools. But they feel supported by us. And so I issue that not as a challenge, but quite frankly, as a please let's continue the hard work that each of us at this table has committed to. And people are excited about our superintendent. More than half the parents know our superintendent because they were in a school with her or your husband. So that is the good news. And so after I was a little sad on reading that on Saturday, I was happier Saturday night because these kids danced and ate and danced and ate and danced and ate. So they were definitely in a good place. But Sunday, I think for me, the culmination of hearing those parents say that they believe in us. And I want to share share that with you all, is that those parents believe in us. And I assured them that we aren't going to let them down, and we'll continue to ensure that the folks at this board table continue to support those initiatives, and we really walk our talk. So thank you all for being great colleagues, and hopefully those words will keep you encouraged as well. Dr. Martin.
Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it is a challenge to all of us to earn that trust. Yeah. I also want to extend congratulations to everybody who is starting the year-round school calendar. Good luck on a great year. I don't have as much to report as sometimes because I actually did a rare thing for me and took a week's vacation. My son and I had a wonderful chance to travel back in my old stomping grounds in Southern California. One of our stops, I stopped by my old elementary school, Citrus Elementary School. It was fun to swing on a couple of the old monkey bars that are still there.
Pictures to prove it.
And pictures to prove it. But they were out of session, but I stopped in. The principal was there and just had a delightful time talking with the principal. And he just sort of beamed from ear to ear, you know, and he said, you know, I'm going to send an email to all the teachers to let them know that we actually do generate people who actually go on and do something. Anyhow, so it was just a lot of fun to reconnect and see my old stomping grounds and see the work of education continues. And we are the products of education. We don't always think about it, but it's good to stop back and say thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Sutton.
Not much, just again welcoming students back to school this year, and those that are still on summer break, continue to enjoy the summer, and we'll see you soon.
Ms. Kushner.
Thank you for sharing your weekend inspiration, Madam Chair. And also wanted to, our year-round schools are truly our courageous leaders. Our principals are putting into place plans that have just been formed, and we're as my colleagues know, we're forming our budget, finalizing some budget decisions tonight, and the principals started their school year yesterday. So I really want to thank the leaders at our multi-track year-round schools for being our pioneers, as always.
Ms. Mahaffey.
Congratulations and welcome back to our year-round students. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to Alston Ridge Elementary and see their Project Approach in action. And what it is that the students start with the third graders were talking about the life cycle of a plan, and the standards that they have to meet are exactly the same, but it's so student-centered. They talk about their own interaction with plans, how they tell a story, and then questions that they have, things like, if the water is polluted, how does that affect the plants? What if they're put in salt water? All sorts of just general inquiry to get them excited about the content. And then they get put into groups, and the groups were things like carnivorous plants, weeds, and the Dust Bowl, which the social studies teacher in me was really interested in that one. And one student just wanted to talk about her grandma's spider plant. Her grandma had a spider plant. And so she worked with the teacher to do a whole presentation and deep dive into plants that she called, I now know they're called cutters, where you can clip a little bit out and they regrow. And then her question spread into, well, aren't all plants able to do that? And she was able to tell me that, well, it'll work on these plants and these plants, but on this one, not so much. You need to add this and that to the soil. And it was just amazing to see the level of engagement, because it was their own. They took ownership in the work. They were able to regurgitate their learning, and it wasn't rote. And if you asked them questions, they were able to answer. And it was just amazing to see. And I can't thank Alston Ridge enough for inviting me, because it really was a powerful thing to see our third graders do.
Ms. Cash.
I don't have much. I did go out to a couple of the year-round schools because it was fun. Half my own children were in year-round, half my children were in traditional, and it always worked out really well for me. But it was good to go out there and see the excitement. It's always funny that in July that the kids can be as excited as kids in August about coming back to school. So otherwise, not much else.
Mr. Fletcher.
I, too, am very excited about the excitement around the opening of our multi-track schools, and another 10,000 or so will show up in 3 weeks to start Track 4. And glad to see that program thriving, and there are probably a few seats available for families who would be interested in making their way into that multi-track program. If you want to take a vacation in October, that's what you need to do. We heard earlier tonight, and I applaud the Wakehead Partnership for their Partners Read program. I have to take a little pride in the fact that it's an outgrowth of a program called Read a Book, Get a Book. This program is sponsored by the Cary Rotary Club, and it was designed by an instructional resource teacher at Briarcliff Elementary School about 7 years ago. It's in 7 schools now in Wake County. The books are paid for by the Rotary Club or other private contributions. And this is a thank you card from Dillard Elementary, which is one of the 7 schools who used the program last year. The Dillard mascot is the dragonfly. And the copy says, "We are soaring and read a book at Dillard Drive Elementary School." And the point being, A, our business community is involved. B, many of our children have never held a book of their own. And this is a program that puts books into the hands of children who would not have one otherwise. So is the Partners Read program. It's amazing what happens when children have the opportunity to do something that you know they need to learn to do, like read, and choose to do it. And that's what happens in a program like this, where the children voluntarily show up to meet with the reader from the Partners Read program, or to meet with a school, what we call the school champion, the Read a Book champion in this program. And I just want you to understand that we have 30% of our third graders who are not reading at grade level for various reasons. And it's not because we don't have good instruction. It's not because we don't have caring teachers. It's because there's a gap when they walk into the school. And one of those gaps is nothing to read at home, no one to read to them, no one to read with them. And programs like this that are funded by our business partners help close that gap. We have 7 years worth of data now on the children who participate in the Read a Book, Get a Book program. And we see increased fluency, increased vocabulary, and increased comprehension. And it's simple things that will make a difference in the academic success of our children, and ultimately in their world, their existence in this world, whatever they might choose to do once they acquire these skills. The reading opens it for all of them. So thank you to Wakehead Partnership for taking this program concept and implementing it. And I say thank you to my Rotary Club for putting money on the table to buy books for these kids. And we're going to continue it, looking to expand it to other schools, and glad to be a partner in that myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. You were very humble, but thank you for your leadership in this as well. We will now move to the approval of the meeting of our agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to public comment. Citizens who sign up to address the board during public comment will be called on in priority order, first for items on the agenda and then for items not on the agenda. Each individual speaker will be allowed 3 minutes for remarks. Specific personnel or student matters are not appropriate for this public comment setting, but may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Mekhana Chamarty? Oh, Sorry, Kristen, you're actually first, but I'll come back to you. I was focused on pronouncing your name correctly, but you can repeat it.
Grade student at Davis Drive Middle School, and I attended Davis Drive Middle School for 3 amazing years, and those years have truly shaped me into the person I am. Now I am going on to my next step on the educational journey, high school. I was assigned to Panther Creek High School, as that is my base school for my new house, and I'd like to respectfully request if my case could be considered to allow me to continue my next educationally important years at Green Hope High School.
Excuse me, this is not a matter for public comment, so we're going to have to ask you to follow the board policies. We're going to, and there's a different format for this, but public comment's not appropriate for confidential student matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is this? Are you next on the list too, Romani?
No, if it is got the same last name, yes.
Okay.
There is a non-topic agenda. I think we have put it in that. We by mistake put it on this agenda over here. Sorry about that.
No problem. I will make sure someone comes over and ensure that you actually know the actual process to complete this. There is a transfer process that will make sure someone on staff comes over to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. We don't see him yet, but we're going to get somebody right to come talk to you. Thank you. Kristen Beller.
Said I was number 3 when I signed up, so
I was right. No, I'm kidding. I intuitively knew.
Yeah. So good evening, Chairwoman and board members, Superintendent Moore. My name is Kristen Beller. I'm the president of Wake NCAE, and I come to you tonight to speak on the budget adjustments for 2018-19. At Wake NCAE, we've been talking a lot about defending and transforming our public schools. And in this political climate, where public schools are constantly facing reductions in funding and being told by elected representatives that they support public schools, but they just can't seem to find the money we need to fully fund the schools our students deserve, I know it must be really frustrating to be the managers of money while having such limited opportunities to impact the actual amount that's coming into you. I want to thank your staff here at Wake County for diligently and carefully thinking through these changes. Some of our members experienced the care that was taken to make sure that they were placed in a position that was best fit for them. And while they certainly would have rathered remain in their previous position, they were grateful that their professional strengths and desires were taken into consideration, as well as the geographical location, so that they didn't get placed in a location where they'd have to drive across the county to get to work. I also feel certain that our membership will be glad to see that the budget adjustments did not change the proposal to increase support personnel salaries, especially since the state excluded those positions from the salary minimum set for all other state employees. And I know that there will be many people who are disappointed in the reduction of support offered to schools, and there will be many of us frustrated with the smaller increase in pay than what was expected. There'll be many people who are unhappy with the elimination of digital materials that they frequently use in their classrooms. But as Mr. Fletcher pointed out during the work session, this funding problem is not a local problem. This is a state funding problem, and Wake NCAE will be working this summer and into the fall to educate our citizens here in Wake that if we do not vote down the constitutional amendment to cap the income tax rate, our school system will continue to face harder budget decisions. We have to invest in our public schools, and the state has a constitutional responsibility to bear that burden. We cannot continue to push it upon our local government. And we look forward to working with our school board to continue to educate our citizens on the real source of this funding deficit and the importance of participating in the November election so that it doesn't become a permanent one.
Congratulations on your new position officially.
Thank you.
Mark Dixon.
It's 3 minutes, right?
I think the light is working, so it'll give you some.
Okay. Is this working? All right.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you all. I have spoke with Miss Kathy Hartenstein on the phone. Is she here?
She is out today. She's on vacation.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to meet her in person. We haven't seen face to face, but
I'll make note of that.
To thank her and to thank all of you for what you do. I know your job is very difficult, so we appreciate letting the public comment. So I had some dialogue with Miss, is it Hartenstein or Hartenstein? Thank you, Ms. Hartenstein, about how to request from the board a school assignment that's coming up. So I asked her, how do we do this respectfully? I don't want to be rambunctious. I don't want our neighborhood to cause trouble. How do we do this? What do you want us to do? And how do you not want us to do this? You don't want 1,000 emails, I'm sure. So, so we started some dialogue, and we're going to have some coffee chats, I think, coming up soon.
She'd appreciate me saying Kathy chats.
Okay, so I wanted to request that my neighborhood, Providence Place, be assigned to the new, I think it was M16, but now Alston Ridge Middle School. We want that for proximity. It's very close to our neighborhood, and there's a lot of folks in our neighborhood that complain that both of our school offerings are very far away. So in the petition that you see, this started on Friday, so we've got about 42 respondents so far, but overwhelmingly 90% of them would like to request that we get a closer school. So not only for the shorter bus rides and that, but far more importantly, parent involvement. Oh, can you bring my T-shirts up, please? I am one of these involved parents, and when I heard about, oh my gosh, East and West Cary, I can't go participate. I work and live in Morrisville. I can't get there, and so you shut me out. And I wanted to bring my T-shirts up because I've been to every field trip. The teachers make me a shirt every year because I'm an involved parent. I'm the president of the PTA this year, and I want my kids to succeed, and I'd also like to inspire other parents to do so as well. So at our school, Carpenter Elementary, I run Camp Chameleon, and if you haven't heard of that, you should go take a look or come visit. That is a parent-involved outdoor science and learning space that our teachers use, and it's only because we have active parents. So, so go to the website and take a look. But I know I'm running out of time here, but we'd like to respectfully request that we get assigned, and if there's anybody else from here from Providence Place, you can stand up. But we can bring more at the next meeting if we need to, but I'll have some more dialogue with Miss Kathy, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again. So that's my time.
Thank you.
You do have one more person signed up, Gautam Agarwal. You're ready on the front row.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to the board for taking public comments. We appreciate it. My name is Gautam Agarwal. I'm also from Providence Place. I'm the president of the HOA there. I want to thank Mark for taking the lead on this. This is an issue that's very important to us. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm also an active parent. I'm at the school improvement kind of plan team for my kid's school, which is currently East Cary Middle School, and also I'm involved with a lot of different activities in addition to the president of the board. I'm also actually on the board for a charter school locally as well. I feel education is very important. I also feel it's very important to have proximity. I'm glad Mark took the lead in terms of getting feedback from the community and provide some input to the board here in terms of what our needs are. Currently, from a middle school and high school perspective, most of our kids, most of our students are on the bus for 30, 45 minutes. I've actually had a great experience at East Cary Middle School with my son. He's enjoyed the school. But at the same time, we really are looking for options that are options closer to where we are today. And we think the opportunity to potentially have that little bit closer middle school for us would be a great asset. We think just having the ability to participate for my kid in after school activities ends up being very tough. It's not just the kind of the bus ride there and bus ride back. If he's trying to do some after school activities, it's really tough to arrange for that given our schedules. In addition to that, kind of being part of the school improvement team, I know the level of parent involvement can be tough, especially if it's drawing from students throughout the county, not necessarily kind of within a defined area. So we appreciate the input. We appreciate, hopefully, the group thinking about what can be done in terms of the proximity and what neighborhoods this school will be drawing from. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That concludes public comment. I will now entertain a motion to approve our consent items.
Madam Chair, I'd love to make a motion to approve our consent items as listed.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye. Okay. Any opposed, same side. Motion carries. We have one action item tonight, and as it's already been mentioned, we will now bring forward approval for the board proposed 18-19 operating budget with recommended adjustments. Mr. David Niebuhr.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Moore. At your June 19th meeting, the board adopted an interim budget resolution for the 2018-19 year, which allowed us to pay the salaries and usual ordinary expenditures of the system for the interval between the beginning of the year, July 1st, and the adoption of the final budget. At the board's work session on the 19th, staff presented initial options for adjusting the board's proposed budget with final available funding to the Board of Education for this coming, or for the 18-19 year. And at today's work session, staff presented recommendations for adjusting that $25 million funding gap. Tonight, staff is seeking approval of the board's proposed operating budget with the adjustments recommended to you at your board work session today. Staff will bring a formal resolution for the 2018-19 year after the adjustments have been made. I'll be glad to answer any questions. And at this time, we're asking the board's consideration of approval of the 2018-19 budget based upon the board's proposed budget with the adjustments recommended today.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the 2018-19 operating budget with the recommended adjustments from staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Further discussion? Mr. Fletcher.
I appreciate what how staff has worked through a difficult process to figure out how we pay for the state's expenses. And I use that as a precursor. While legislative leaders hold press conferences extolling teacher raises, for which we're thankful, somehow in the back room, they wind up extracting property taxes from Wake County taxpayers to supplement the state budget. And based on what I've learned in the last several weeks, this year more than 8 cents of Wake County property tax rate has been required to pay expenses that previously were paid for by the state. That's $120 million a year out of Wake County property taxes that's being used to supplement the state budget. That's wrong, it's not public, and it needs to be changed. I quipped a little earlier that at least we're not having to cut middle school orchestra this year to balance the budget. That's because we cut it last year. That's not how we build a great school system, and that's not the level of service that our family deserves. So we need to work out this issue with the legislature, where the legislature's commitment and the way North Carolina public schools are constructed is to fund the operating budget of the schools. The county's supposed to build the buildings, and Senator Berger's office recently issued a statement to that effect when they said we're not going to have a state-wide school bond referendum because the counties are supposed to pay for the schools. Well, the other side of that coin is the state's supposed to pay for the operating budget. And every year, they're fanfare about what they choose to do publicly, and then in the back room, they send more expenses to the county that have to be paid for with county property taxes. It's not right. It needs to change, and the public needs to know what's going on. In fact, I don't think many legislators actually know what they approved when they approved this last budget. So I am in support of what we've had to do to balance our budget, but I am reasonably outraged at the reason we're having to do it.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say amen, but here.
Well, we can have church, but I don't think an altar call is going to help right now.
We missed the opportunity for the altar call. But we might have to pass the collection plate.
Yeah. Several times.
Well stated. So I'm looking to see if anyone wants to. There isn't, but just it was.
The thing is, the county commission did what they could.
That's right.
They've worked with us. We've worked with them. There's been a new era in the relationship between the two boards. Yes, we have conflicts. We have conflicts because the state's taken the money. That's why we have conflict. $120 million out of the local budget minimum, and it's more than that, I believe, is 8 cents on the property tax rate. We could build schools for cash if we weren't sending money to the state.
That's why we couldn't add anything. I mean, you're right and right again. So I feel like this is my second year sitting here, have to say the same thing, and that is, of course, we are going to pass a budget. We have commissioners who supported us. We have some. We talk about in my work with young people, love with accountability. I think we're completely missing the accountability on Jones Street, and I thank you, Mr. Fletcher, for so eloquently summarizing what the lack of accountability looks like in some level of detail. And again, we talk about this all the time, how many people are really watching our board members, but at important meetings. At the end of the day, our YouTube videos do get a lot of backplay, and I think it's important that you gave a really good summary of where we are, the impact that it has. And so I could go on all day, but you know, I didn't have closed session after we talked about the budget because I think we all needed a moment because it is emotional for us to pass a budget knowing that staff has done everything possible to ensure that we are keeping teaching and learning. I'm quoted to the news reporters earlier, I still believe that we're the best choice in Wake County, not because of the education that we're providing in that classroom, but because of the adults who are committed to our district and committed to holding other adults accountable for the impact of not doing justice by our students, the impact it has. But we'll keep doing our work, and we'll continue to pass a budget with lots of hesitation and disappointment, but recognizing that it's important that our teachers, our students, and our school community at large know where we stand, and Mr. Fletcher did a good job of that. So without further ado, all in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and thank you, Mr. Nieder, and everyone who worked on this while many of us were on vacation. I appreciate the emails and the constant care, as you heard from NCAE, that you all took with managing the difficult of our employees and recognizing they know that we consider them our family, and we did our best given what we have. So thank you and everyone who worked on this. I'll now entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Move to go into closed session to consider confidential personnel information protected under GS 143-318.11 A1, A3, and A6, and 115C-319 to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in GS 143-318.11 A3. A due process complaint in the Office of Administrative Hearings, MK, by and through this parent, LK versus WCPSS Board of Education 18 EDC 03377 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consult with an instruct board staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the board on the particulars of the acquisition of real property for public infrastructure improvements related to the Parkside Elementary School site, and to receive the board's instructions as to the position to be taken on behalf of the board and negotiations in relation thereto. To consult with an attorney employed or retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consult with and instruct board staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the board on the particulars of the acquisition of real property for public infrastructure improvements related to the Alston Ridge Middle School site, and to receive the board's instructions as to the position to be taken on behalf of the board in negotiations in relation thereto. To consult with an attorney employed or retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consult with and instruct board staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the board in negotiations of price and other material terms of a proposed contract for the acquisition of a real property in the Western Wake County Apex Holly Springs area, and to consider confidential student information protected under GS 115C-402 and the Family Education and Privacy Rights Act 20 U.S. Code 1232G.
Second.
Next time, I feel like, you know how you read in elementary that you read a paragraph, I read a paragraph, I think next time we can pass it off. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. We can share. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. You do a great job. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We'll now go into closed session. Thank you.